Hello and welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. My name is James, your host and Bible reader for Lamp Bible Study. Welcome back. and we are going to pick up with the rest of and conclude the book of Esther today. And so I hope and pray that we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom together through his holy word. Today has been a very interesting day, very, very busy, somewhat hectic in a way, but everything's going okay. And that is a major blessing. And I thank the Lord every day. And I thank the Lord now for that. So thank you, Lord, for just another blessed day. And I hope and pray that you're having a wonderful, blessed day. And if not, welcome to another Lamp Bible Study. and so I'm always excited to do the Bible study. I'm always excited to go through the Word with others. And, whether it be in Sunday school or a Bible study, I love reading the Word and reading it with others and hearing what other thoughts and hearing about other people and things that have happened for themselves and what the Word means to them and where that feeling comes from. And so it's a joy there. It's a real joy. And so I'm excited. We're going to go ahead and conclude the book of Esther today. I'm currently reading from an NIV Collegiate Bible. Of course, I'll be reading different versions and such. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. I hope and pray that you continue to follow along with us as we continue to journey through the Bible and the different books. I will always ask, every now and then throughout the Bible study, what kind of thoughts or feelings do you have? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Now, whenever I mention that, what I'm talking about is we have our own thoughts and feelings in life. And whether they be through experience, through learning, what have you, what I'm referring to and talking about is those thoughts and feelings once you receive the word. So we want to shove our thoughts and feelings to the side, right? And we want to allow for the Holy Spirit. We want to allow for the word and listen. We want to listen and see what it's speaking to us, see what it's saying to us in our life and how we're interpreting it, and see where it leads us and guides us and directs us. And that provides the true thoughts and feelings that we may have. And so, because the Lord knows each and every one of our hearts. And I hope and pray, even if you're not a believer, welcome, because the Bible is about love. God is love, and He wants to show the world constantly, and He does constantly, about His love. And I pray that you see that through His holy word. So let's get started, because there's a lot here that we're going to go over today. We possibly are going to go over again. So welcome, and let's get started with the book of Esther, chapter 6. Mordecai honored. That night the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, Who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows he had erected for him. A quick pause, or a pause. So just to fill us in, we are now in the book of Esther. This is during the exile. So, of course, Israel was brought out of Egypt because they had originally went down there to get away from the possibilities of having to deal with famine. And remember, it was Joseph, and how he was sent down there first. Through, trials and tribulations, but there's a reason for everything. And so so Israel was down there, and then they left. They were able to leave through the glory of God, through the Lord showing his power and might, and Moses led them out. They were led to the promised land. They were told, as long as you follow the rules, the laws, and covenant of the Lord, everything's going to go well in the promised land. But if you forget and if you don't, then you may be eventually disciplined, and that includes up to exile. Unfortunately, Israel as a whole, after generation, even that generation that Moses was in, they didn't get to see the promise. They didn't get to go into the promised land. And they didn't get to experience it because of their hard-headedness. So their children, though, were able to go into the promised land, and they were able to be in the promised land, and it was a land flowing with milk and honey, and everything was fantastic. And that's what happens. Sometimes humanistic things happen, and those things are everything's going good. We tend to forget who provided that, who and reasons for humbling ourselves and giving thanks, which is interesting because I'm doing this around that time of the year, right? Thanksgiving. I know this is more than likely going to be posted afterwards. This is going to be posted between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But, 'tis the season, so it's very interesting that going over this right now. And so Israel wasn't thankful. And so eventually, slowly but surely, they started doing just as the Canaanites that were there were doing. They did exactly and more so. They were worshiping idols. They were worshiping other gods. They were doing all kinds of detestable acts. And so the Lord warned them over and over again through seers and prophets and through through people, through acts, and they didn't listen. Over and over again, generation after generation. So eventually, Lord said, okay, now's the time. And they were exiled. And so during the exile, this is in Persia, King Xerxes. And even though they were exiled, the Lord had given them hope, because the Lord never said, okay, you stop doing these things, I'm done with you. Because that's not how the Lord is. The Lord is just and he is right. He can discipline us when he believes that we need to be disciplined. And he can bless us when he believes that we are to be blessed. And he loves us so much that he will just bless us and bless us and bless us. Even when we do wrong, unfortunately. But he knows us, and he knows that we will turn to him. Some won't. And we'll talk about that too, especially in the New Testament, especially when we get to Revelation. Some don't. Do they still, are they still within, sometimes they are still being blessed, though, because the Lord still gives time, he's patient, and he gives time, and he gives warnings over and over again. But okay, so back to here, Esther. So again, the Lord gave Israel hope. He softened the hearts of their conquerors. They were never completely defeated. They were never completely wiped out. They were just exiled. So, they were living in a little bit of fear, but they had hope in the Lord. And the hope in the Lord showed even just in this previous Bible study. So they're exiled, and for some odd reason, the king had a queen, but she didn't come to him when he requested, and thus during the time, this Old Testament, and how it was during in Persia, the culture and how things were in society. And so the king went to his council. The council declared that told him that he should declare that the queen never come back in front of him again. And this will show throughout the land that women are to respect, of course, the men, the authority figures at this time. And so that is what has happened. As we can see, though, even though this is following a path the Lord can utilize, even though they weren't seeking the Lord, even though they worship their own gods and such, the Lord was utilizing this, because we don't understand that the Lord can even utilize bad decisions and even things that are sin for his righteousness and glory because of the outcome. And that's what we're going to read today. So I don't want to jump ahead though. So here we go with the king, King Xerxes. He was like, okay, he was upset. So his council was like, okay, let's have you gather women, beautiful women, and choose one. And here comes Hadassah, also known as Esther. Hadassah is her Hebrew name, right? Did you know that? And so she never tells anybody, that she is Hebrew, that she's Jewish, and she's Israeli. And so, but she gets chosen. The king immediately falls in love with her. She's beautiful. He loves her. And so he chooses her out of all the women that he got to see and pick and look at. And he chose Esther. And so Esther becomes queen. Well, we have people in his council, in his court, in the king's court, that, they're and they enjoy power, they enjoy authority, and they also enjoy utilizing that power towards oppression and hurt and pain and suffering. And this person named Haman, who was an Agite, was being upheld by the king. Like his authority was increasing because the king found delight in him. He thought that Haman had done a lot for him, so he gave him a lot of honor and a lot of authority. So Haman was going about the town or going through his day, and he ran across Mordecai. Now Mordecai is Esther's cousin. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I thought it was her uncle, but I believe if we read right in the previous Bible study, it was they were cousins. Let me just double check on that. Let me just double check on that. Esther, okay, so let's see here. Mordecai, okay. King Xerxes, Mordecai's son Jer had been carrying. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah. Okay, in chapter 2. So, there's a lot here, when it comes to the Bible. And so applaud those who memorize. So, okay, so he was taking care. Mordecai was taking care of Esther. Esther was taken in as queen. But Haman had passed by Mordecai. Mordecai didn't bow to him. Here's all these people, knowing that there's prestige and it's time to bow to Haman, who's walking into the room. And Mordecai, he is Jew. He is Israel. He is Hebrew. The only person he bows to is the Lord. And so, and this another thing about this book is that there's no actual mention of, there's no actual and God, right? However, everything is about faith. Everything is about God, right? It goes to show. So then Haman gets real petty. He gets real petty, and he's like, that person just didn't bow. That person did not bow to me. Not only did he want Mordecai, not only did Haman want Mordecai to die, but he found out who Mordecai was culturally, who he came from, where he came from, who his people were. And he decided, I want all of them wiped out. So he had an opportunity with the king, because the king, like I said, was wanting to give him honor. And he told Haman, whatever you ask, you can ask for it, and it may be done. And so Haman said he did have something, and that was, he told a lie to the king. He said, you have a group of people in your kingdom that, you defeated, but they are worshiping their own, they are doing their own thing. They don't respect you. they're gonna be rebelling. He made up all these lies, right? And put them in the comments, right? Put them in the and so he made it, and so the king gave him a signet ring and said, "Okay, do as you think is right." And so Haman put out a decree throughout all of the realms, that the Hebrews, the Israels, the Jews would be killed, and he selected a day. And so right now, it wasn't immediately. It was over time. There would be a day coming. And so right now, time is passing by, and we got to see how it affected the people. The people all over the place, including in Susa, were like bewildered, and may have been scared, even may have been, because they were conquered. They were already living in exile. They were already living under this king. They were already doing, knowing that they were under his rulership. And here he is even though it wasn't him, it was Haman, but it was under the king's orders, for a whole people to be killed. So that was disturbing. And Mordecai, who, once he heard it, he immediately tore his clothes and put on ash on his forehead, and went into, just a state of mourning, a state of, wanting to fast and worship the Lord and pray for hope and pray for a miracle. And the Lord was already on it. So sometimes we think that, bringing past to present, sometimes we think that the Lord works in the background. We need something done, so he's gonna start working in the background. What we don't understand is the Lord goes before us. He's the Alpha and the Omega, at the beginning and the end. He already knows. He already has made plans. He's already at work. He's been at work. He already finished. We're the ones having to catch up to it through our faith, through our hope in the Lord. And so once we realize that, then we have that comfort, we have that peace, and we have that love. And then we see those things. We see his action happening. It's amazing. It's amazing. In this case, all these people didn't know what was going on. They just saw this edict saying that they were to be killed. And Esther, who is a Jew, who is Hebrew, who is from Israel, is the queen. So Mordecai sends a letter to Esther and says, "Hey, Esther, I recognize this. I recognize this is from the Lord. You are in your position from the Lord. It is time for you to act." And Esther, she's human. We're all human, right? She has those feelings too. She's like, okay, the king hasn't requested for my presence, because during that time, you had to be requested. And if you went before the king without being requested, you could die, unless the king decided to hold out a scepter, which means he's accepting your presence. Here, you can come on in. Put any corrections that you may have to this in the comments. We'll go over it again. This isn't the first time I'm going to be, or last time I'm going to be, definitely going over this, especially the book of Esther. And there's a lot to cover. Look at the time, my goodness. And so then, so Esther sends back. She's like, hey, I can't go before I can't go before the king unless he calls me. So Mordecai says, look, this is the time for you. If you don't do it, the Lord will utilize someone else. And another thing, past to present, when the Lord speaks to us, the Lord gives us opportunity. And if we don't act upon, or we don't do what he's given us to do, or given us those opportunities, the Lord will find somebody else. It's just, for us, it would be a missed opportunity, a missed blessing, a missed gift, whatever it may be. And then I also mentioned, we can't get it twisted in our mind that if we don't do something, like if I or you or whoever is that person doesn't do something, that God's plan is going to fail. Not the case. Not the case. Remember, he's the Alpha and the Omega, beginning and the end. He's in control. Period. Again, if that person doesn't do it, there will be somebody that's going to do it. So he reminds her of that. He says, "Hey, Esther, if you don't do this, somebody, Lord, don't worry, and you won't escape punishment or what's going to happen. You won't escape. Don't think you're going to escape it. But the Lord will send. The Lord's full of hope. He's going to send someone." So Esther sends back a note saying, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fast. We're going to fast for 3 days. You're going to fast. I'm going to fast. Like, keep me in prayer. I'm going to go before the Lord. I'm gonna go before the Lord. I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna be like fasting, like please, and then I'm gonna go before the King. And if if that means the end of my life, then so be it. But if not, so so she goes before the King, and the King holds out a scepter. How amazing! The Lord works in His mysterious ways and His timing. So, and that's another thing about timing we're going to get to today, because why didn't Esther say what she did from the last time? Because remember, we left off on a cliffhanger. Esther invited him, the king, and Haman, whom the king had delighted in at the time, to go to a banquet. She knew who Haman was, and she knew that Haman was the one that made the decree. But she's like, okay, I'm going to host a banquet. They go to the banquet. The king asks her what she wants, what's her request, because that's what you're granted. If you go before the king and he holds out a scepter, you also may get a request. She tells him, come back tomorrow or the next day or what have you, and I'm going to host another banquet, and then I'll let you know. So we look at that and we're like, was Esther afraid? Maybe. I mean, she just put her life on the line, and thank the Lord it wasn't killed, ended that same day. Timing. It may have not been time. She may have not had that peace, that comfort. It may have not been there. The words may have not been there. The feeling that guidance from the Lord may have not been there at that time. Or it may have, and it may have been telling her, it's not time. It's not time. So bring past to present. Sometimes we may want to do something. We may want to give. We may want to do something. Or we may want to do something. And we want to go to the Lord first. And we want to make sure that the Lord guides us and the Lord shows us what to do and how to do it and when, because timing is everything. You may think you're doing a huge favor, a huge gift to somebody or whatever, and you may just go and you're like, here, I did, here you go, Merry Christmas or Happy New Year or Happy Birthday, or this is a gift, here you go. And it may not be looked upon that because of timing, when, where, how, why, because of timing. But when the Lord guides us to do something, it's perfect timing. It's just on time. It's right on time. And it makes a huge difference. It can make a huge difference and a huge impact. And so when you do it and it's correct, it's a blessing. It's a huge thing. It's a huge, enormous thing. So think about that, because we always want to have control, right? But we also need to give that control and that timing to the Lord, because then it will be perfect, and correct and right. So a lot, right? I was like, wow, we have a lot that we went over and a lot revealed. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? All right, let's continue to read. All right, I lost my place. Okay, so the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now I'm gonna reread some of this. Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows he had erected for him. Remember, Mordecai, previous Bible study. Haman was not happy with Mordecai, so he wanted his death, and he wanted all of his people died. So here he just had some gallows built. He's come to tell the king, "Hey, I want you to kill this person today." Even though the king just read that Mordecai had saved his life, and nothing had been done to thank Mordecai. Let's see what happens. Let's continue to read. His attendants answered, "Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in," the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" See how he says it too? He doesn't mention Mordecai right here. He doesn't mention Mordecai at first. He's saying, he's asking his best friend, his best counselor, "Hey, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" And what do you think Haman thinks? Who, the king just asked me this? I'm already honored. He's already given me a signet ring, but now he's asking. You think he's thinking about himself? Let's continue to read. Now Haman thought to himself, "Who is there that the king would rather honor than me?" So he answered the king, "For the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, 'This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.' Go at once," the king commanded Haman. "Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended." So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, "This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor." Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief and told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, "Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. So right here, Mordecai was plotting and planning, or not Mordecai. Haman was plotting and planning all these things against Mordecai. And right here, you have it. The Lord can turn stuff around. People, we think that these evil schemes and these things that come against us, they just keep coming and coming and coming. Don't lose hope. Don't get weary of faith. Go to the Lord. Pray to him. The Lord is already at work. Everything's under a time limit. Everything is under time, and everything can be turned around. The Lord has control over all of it. So right here we see, here's Haman. He's ready to kill Mordecai. He's ready to kill the Jews. And then the king tells him, "Go do what you just said about honoring someone to Mordecai." So Haman think about how he feels too. He rushed home in grief. And then even his wife said something. She was like, "Well, he is a Jew, Mordecai is a Jew, and you've done all this to him. Even though she was part of the reason why he decided to kill them all. Remember, she was part of his council telling him, yeah, go have the gallows built. Yeah, go do the. Interesting, right? Think about that. Bringing past to present, like I said, Lord can turn anything around. Don't lose hope. Trust in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Trust in the Lord always as well. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Haman hanged. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther, and as they were drinking wine on that second day, the king asked, Queen Esther, what is your petition? Queen Esther, what is your petition? Probably like, oh, love, what is your, just so, I can just picture it. It will be given you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted. That's huge. That's more than what he was talking with Haman about, too. Let's continue to read. Then Queen Esther answered, if I have found favor with you, O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and annihilation. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Who is the man who has dared to do such a thing? Shows you what kind of feelings he had for Esther. Lots. Those of love and protection. Think about that. Couples out there, people out there. whatever you may be out there, think about that. Couples, people in relationship, wanting to be in a relationship. When someone cares about you, whoever that person may be, they care about you. They care about you. They care about your well-being. They care about how you are, your emotions. They care about you. Bringing past to present in relationships. Same way. Whatever that relationship may be. With whomever. And think about that. So the Lord created us as in his image, right? And we are to love him, and we are to love each other, right? So that care for another person, especially that person that you love, that person that you want to have a relationship with, as we can see, it reflects. It's a reflection of the Lord's love. Because you care deeply about that person. You care about him. You care. You put what their needs and such in front. And that just shows us how the Lord loves us. And it shows us that we reflect that. We reflect that. Think about that. Because there's even the people that don't believe. They may come to love someone, and they may do exactly like this. Want to defend, want to comfort, want to be there for that person, want to do things for that person. Where do we think that came from? It's a reflection of the Lord's love. It proves that there is a God. It proves it. Think about that. There's a lot here. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? And what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this vile Haman. Could you imagine? You were invited. So put everything aside. You were invited to a banquet. You were being petty. You're you have done these things. You were invited to a banquet. You thought you were being honored because the queen, and then she turns around and says, "These vile things are done because." And we already know how the king is. He's like, he's very serious. So, think about how Esther feels too. Does the king really love me? Does have my prayers been answered? I mean, so far so good. The fasting, the prayers, and everything. The king didn't have her killed. The king's showing love, showing that he wants to comfort her and protect her. A lot here. Let's continue to read. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs, attended the king, said, "A gallows 75 feet high stands by Haman's house. He had it made for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king." The king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. Amen. 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 Look at that. Think about how Esther was feeling. Think about the relief. Everyone was scared. Everyone was terrified. And then this happens. It shows you that the Lord provides hope. The Lord shows his love to us all the time. And it was a relief. Amazing. Amazing. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind when we read over this? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Remember, the Lord can turn things around. It's in the Lord's power. Let his will be done. Accept it. Be humble. Be thankful. Be thankful for the good things. This is the season. 'Tis the season to be joyful and thankful. When the time is right, we give. When the time is correct, we sing our praises. We give praise to the Lord. We allow for his blessings. We want to bless others. We show his love. We are a reflection of him. We are a reflection of his love. Think about those things in our lives. Again, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The king's edict in behalf of the Jews. That same day, King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it to Mordecai, and Esther appointed him over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. She begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman the Agagite, which he had devised against the Jews. Then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she rose and stood before him. "If it pleases the king," she said, "and if he regards me with favor and thinks it the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Jews in all the king's provinces. For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family?" And so, right here, does it again. She goes before him, and he extends his scepter, and she asks for these things, for her people to be saved. Let's continue to read. King Xerxes replied to Queen Esther, and to Mordecai the Jew. Because Haman attacked the Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and they have hanged him on the gallows. Now write another decree in the king's name in behalf of the Jews, as seems best to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked. At once the royal secretaries were summoned. On the 23rd day of the third month, the month of Sivan, they wrote out all Mordecai's orders to the Jews and to the satraps, governors, and nobles of the 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. These orders were written in the script of each province and the language of each people, and also to the Jews in their own script and language. Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes, sealed the dispatches with the king's signet ring, and sent them by mounted couriers who rode fast horses, especially bred for the king. So right here, everything's being reversed. Everything is being reversed. The Lord gives us hope, and the Lord gives us victory. Think about that. Bring past to present. Have you received victory in your life? Have you noticed that? Have you been a part of something? Have you prayed and it been answered? Has something happened to you that you wished for and it's been given to you? Think about those things, because some people they don't, and that question is because some people, they don't believe. They don't, because they may not understand. And so through the Holy Word, there's wisdom here. And so with that, you can look and see even people who may not be of belief still receive blessings. I know, right? Because we don't pick and choose who the Lord gives blessings to. The Lord does. And we'll go over that too in another Bible study. But this is the book of Esther, the book of hope, the book of faith and hope and love. Just, it's amazing. It's amazing. It makes me want to read this all over again. It really does. It's so good and amazing. Again, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate any armed force of any nationality or province that might attack them and their women and children, and to plunder the property of their enemies. The day appointed for the Jews to do this in all the provinces of King Xerxes was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers riding the royal horses raced out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was also issued in the citadel of Susa. Mordecai left the king's presence wearing royal garments of blue and white, a large crown of gold, and a purple robe of fine linen, and the city of Susa held a joyous celebration. For the Jews, it was a time of happiness and joy, gladness and honor. In every province and in every city, wherever the edict of the king went, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and it's hooked on something. With feasting and celebrating, and many people of other nationalities became Jews because fear of the Jews had seized them. So a lot of people converted to Judaism. Or to Jewish beliefs. They were like, wow, look at this. Their God's answering them. They must have a living Lord. And so, look at that. Here they are in exile. But the Lord is protecting them. The Lord has provided hope. The Lord has provided peace. The Lord has provided the glory and the victory over the enemies. Boom, right? Just right here. Just right here. And other people are seeing the blessings and they're like, wow, what do we, how do we, how do we, you know, start worshiping the Lord? I've talked about this in many of Bible studies, and I'll talk about it again. When we have our walk with the Lord, and it's right and it's correct, and we're having our walk with the Lord, and the Lord can utilize us. The Lord can give us blessings, and that will bless others, and they'll wonder why. They'll ask, they're like, okay, you seem happy. You seem like you know something. You seem like you know something. You know the truth. You seem like everything's okay. I see that. Where did you find it? And that provides us, the people of faith, people who know, an opportunity. The Lord is giving an opportunity, and the Lord is also knocking on them, knocking on their heart. It's time for them to let him in. It's time. And so he can show his love as he always does, so we can understand. We can understand together. We can love, we can worship together. Think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Triumph of the Jews. On the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, the edict commanded by the king was to be carried out. On this day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned, and the Jews got the upper hand over those who hated them. The Jews assembled in their cities in all the provinces of King Xerxes to attack those seeking their destruction. No one could stand against them, because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them, and all the nobles of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and the king's administrators helped the Jews, because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace. His reputation spread throughout the provinces, and he became more and more powerful. The Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying them, and they did what they pleased to those who hated them. In the citadel of Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. They also killed Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Paratha, Adelia, Aridatha, Parmashta, Ursia, Aridia, and Vezatha. This Old Testament, a lot of these names and such are a little bit difficult. If you know the correct pronunciation, please say them with us. If you know how to type them out in the comments section, please do so, and I thank you. The 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. The number of those slain in the citadel of Susa was reported to the king that same day. The king said to Queen Esther, "The Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the citadel of Susa. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now, what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? It will also be granted." So this king asking the queen, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" Then she speaks, right? Let's continue to read. "If it pleases the king," Esther said, or answered, "give the Jews in Susa permission to carry out this day's edict tomorrow also, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on gallows." So the king commanded that this be done. An edict was issued in Susa, and they hanged the 10 sons of Haman. The Jews in Susa came together on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they put to death in Susa 300 men, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. Meanwhile, the remainder of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also assembled to protect themselves and get relief from their enemies. They killed 75,000 of them, but did not lay their hands on the plunder. This happened on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. So, the Lord gave them victory. The Lord gave them victory. And, they had people, as we can see, that did not, they were like, oh, who are these people? We don't like them. We don't care who they are. They worship some God. And they were against him. They were completely against him, so much so that they still went to attack him. And as you can see, the Lord's in control. The Lord is in control. The Lord provides the victory. And so the Jews, they had faith. They had love with them. They were fully protected. And so, just like the king wanted to protect his wife, the true king, the Lord, our Savior, wants to protect us. Think about that. Bringing past to present, right? What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? Let's continue to read. Purim celebrated. The Jews in Susa, however, had assembled on the 13th and 14th, and then on the 15th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. That is why rural Jews, those living in villages, observed the 14th of the month of Adar as the day of joy and feasting, a day for giving presents to each other. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate annually the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar as the time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned into joy, and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe the days as days of feasting and joy, and giving presents of food to one another and gifts to the poor. What does that sound like? What holiday does that sound like? Giving presents to each other. The timing on this stuff it's the Lord's timing. From where I started in Exodus to now, and I know this is going to be in between Thanksgiving, posted between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Very interesting. Very interesting. Oh, and I might. I was thinking about skipping ahead, but no, I think I'll just continue. If the Lord puts it in my heart to skip ahead to do a certain Bible study beforehand, I might do it. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I lost my place. Okay, let's, before I go on, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? Bring past to present, sounds like Christmas to me, or sounds like some time of giving, people give. And Purim, though, is still celebrated today. It is still very much so celebrated today. Hanukkah is another Jewish holiday that is celebrated to this day. There's all kinds of different holidays, especially between Thanksgiving and Christmas, all different types of holidays with different types of cultures and cultural representations. So you have several. And I don't know why that happened, but okay. I hope that didn't come across the screen. But anyway, so there's quite a bit of different celebrations and stuff. I know Hanukkah's one. I know Kwanzaa's one. And between now and the end of the year, especially. But celebrations. What are their meanings? That's a question to you. What are their meanings? What are celebrations' meanings? How does it, what are they to you? Whether they be Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, The various holidays throughout. What do they mean to you? And what do they represent? Is it about love? Is it about bringing joy to everyone? Think about those things. 'Cause, when the time of peace, the time of joy and stuff, we all want to share that with each other. And all good things come from above. Again, what kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel? What does it make you think? Let's continue to read. So the Jews agreed to continue the celebration they had begun, doing what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them and had cast the pur, that is the lot, for their ruin and destruction. But when the plot came to the king's attention, he issued written orders that the evil scheme Haman had devised against the Jews should come back onto his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore, these days were called Purim, from the word pur, because of everything written in this letter, and because of what they had seen and what had happened to them. The Jews took it upon themselves to establish the custom that they and their descendants and all who joined them should without fail observe these 2 days every year in the way prescribed and at the time appointed. These days should be remembered and observed in every generation by every family, and in every province and in every city. And these days of Purim should never cease to be celebrated by the Jews, nor should the memory of them die out among their descendants. So Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, along with Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to confirm the second letter concerning Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Jews in the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Xerxes, words of goodwill and assurance. Goodwill towards men. That's my attitude. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men, Let's continue to read. To establish these days of Purim at their designated times, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther had decreed for them, and as they had established for themselves and their descendants in regard to their times of fasting and lamentation. I know the book of lamentation. We're going to be in the book of lamentation too. Let's continue to read. Esther's decree confirmed these regulations about Purim, and it was written down in the records. So, a lot here. Where to start, right? So this is the time of exile. So this is from the time of exile, and the Lord's provided them hope. The Lord has now provided them victory, and so they're celebrating. They're joyous, and they have made it a day to remember in a celebration called Purim, which is still celebrated to this day. And so this, as a reminder of the hope that the Lord brings, and as a reminder of the things that had happened. But the Lord brought them victory, and the Lord brings us victory. The Lord continues to bring us victory. And so think about those things in our life, bringing past to present. Have there been times where people have plotted and schemed, but those plots and scheme against you have fallen through? There's a reason. All good things come from above. There's a purpose. You have a purpose. Each and every one of us has a purpose and a reason. And pray about it. Pray about it. Give it to the Lord. The Lord will provide that revelation. The Lord will provide the answers. Think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? All right, let's finish. The greatness of Mordecai. King Xerxes imposed tribute throughout the empire to its distant shores, and all his acts of power and might, together with a full account of the greatness of Mordecai, to which the king had raised him, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Media and Persia? Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Xerxes, preeminent among the Jews, and held in high esteem by his many fellow Jews because he worked for the good of his people and spoke up for the welfare of all the Jews. He's a good person. He was good, not only a good person, but he had a relationship with the Lord. Strong, he walked with the Lord. That's right. And here he is in the land of exile, and yet not being treated as such. He was second to the king. The people were held in high esteem after that, and had peace and joy and feasting. Think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel, and what does it make you think? All right, let's do a quick review. Mordecai honored. So, remember, Haman thought he was, the person, the number one. His head was ginormous. I mean that figuratively, as in he thought himself as like the best person. The everybody loves him. The men love him. The women love him. Everybody loves him. And so he was riding high. He was it. And oh, how he was brought low in his face, to his face. He thought he had all the power and he had all the control. No. Lord showed him. He had to, Haman had to give, and did I say Mordecai? And if I say Mordecai again, man, I apologize now. It's Haman. Haman thought he was, and he didn't know. He didn't know that, and probably Mordecai didn't know that his thing about what he did to turn into Esther beforehand, about the plot to kill the king, he probably didn't know what was going to happen. So here he goes. Haman comes in. He's all like big-headed and everything, and he's, like I said, big-headed as figuratively, as in he thinks he is number one. He is awesome. He everybody loves him, and he goes up to the king because he wants Mordecai killed on the gallows, and instead the king's like, he asks him a question. What should I do for the one the king delights in? So here I go again. Haman gives him, he tells him, put him on a horse and put royal stuff on him and proclaim before everybody. So the king said, do that to Mordecai. Right in Haman's face. So, what does that tell us? The Lord can turn things around. And will. The victory's already been had. It's just, we got to get to it. Haman hanged. Then Haman was hanged on the gallows that he built for Mordecai. Surprise. He got what he was trying to give to other people. Think about that, too. You don't want to go down that path. You don't want to be facetious. You don't want to be someone who plots and plans, because you could be eating it. You could be eating the dust. The ground that you was preparing for other people, it could be very well put against you. The destruction, the loss of job, whatever, it can be very well turned around. So we are to love each other, love our neighbor as ourselves. The king's edict in behalf of the Jews, as Mordecai was able to do a proclamation in the king's name with the king's signet ring, that all the Jews could defend themselves. And so the triumph of the Jews did. And they did it the first day and the second day. Then they Purim celebrated. And now we know where Purim came from, and how they gave gifts to each other, and how they celebrated in remembrance of the victory that the Lord provided them. Because the Lord provides hope. He provides the victory. The greatness of Mordecai, and how Mordecai became second only to the king. Here's a group of people that were in exile, and everything has been turned all the way around. It's Think about that. What kind of thoughts or feelings come to your mind? How does it make you feel and what does it make you think? All right. Once again, thank you very much for joining me in another Lamp Bible Study. Lamp Bible Study comes out every Tuesdays and Thursdays on the YouTube channel with highlights throughout the week and flashlights on Friday. Please continue to pray for me. I will always continue to pray for you. We're going to be starting in a new book. So right after Esther is Job, the book of Job. Ooh, that's a lot. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be deep. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be wisdom. It's going to be understanding. Job, we're going to try to go at the same pace. Try is the key word. Try is go at the same pace, but it's going to be a lot. Esther, beautiful, beautiful book about faith and love. And I hope and pray that we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom together through his holy word. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section. If you have any, check out the Instagram page as well as the YouTube channel. If you want to do more with Lamp Bible Study, if you have additional questions or concerns, there's an email contact in the YouTube contacts page that you can always send information to or send requests to or send questions to. And so with all of that, I hope and pray that we continue to seek the Lord's wisdom together through his holy word. And I'll see you next time here on Lamp Bible Study. With that being, have a blessed morning, a blessed day, a blessed afternoon, a blessed evening, and a blessed night. God bless.